Where's that presentation you need for your boss? Slack? Email? Drive? Lost, like your sanity, after wasting hours searching 76 tabs. Your work tools shouldn't take so much work. Dropbox Dash finds what you need fast across all your work apps, so you can focus on what matters. Spend less time searching, more time creating. Learn more at dropbox.com/dash.
Podcast with my partner Brian Siegler. I'm Curtis Wilson. Brian, you surprised me a couple minutes ago, big guy.
Yeah, buddy. As you all know, everybody out there, this is a offensive lineman podcast, unofficially. So, what better way to kind of bring that home than to have the Hokies offensive line coach Joe Rudolph on with us, and we're not going to hesitate. We're going to go ahead and bring him on. Hey, Coach, how you doing tonight?
Doing great, Brian. Curtis, how you doing?
We're doing good, Coach Rudolph. It's a pleasure to have you. We thought we weren't going to have you this week. We hadn't heard back from Travis, but I mean, it was an absolute a pleasant surprise when I clicked on the button about 10 minutes ago, and there's Brian and Coach Rudolph, and I'm like, oh shit, it's Coach Rudolph. We got him. How are you doing this evening? Obviously, I see Dwayne Brown over your left shoulder there, so I'm assuming you're at Merriman still.
Yeah, no question. That time of year, just kind of grinding and trying to put everything we can together to be at our best.
Well, we appreciate you taking out your time tonight to speak with us and to speak here with Hokie Nation. And, we'll try to make it short and quick so you can get back to doing what you do. So I'll let Brian lead off with this one because obviously big man here playing O-line in college. I know this is a treat for you, Brian.
Absolutely. And let's start there because my offensive line coach in college was actually Keith Goon Conlon. Played at Penn State in the early 90s under Joe Pa. I know you were about the same time frame there at Wisconsin. What was it like playing during that era?
Oh, I think it was I had a blast playing the game. I mean, I played my first year at linebacker, and then I think they told me that my summer goal was to come back as the biggest linebacker in the Big Ten. So I thought I might be moving positions, and I just embraced it, and I loved it, man. I loved knocking the snot out of linebackers because I wasn't playing it anymore, and so it was a position that fit me great. I had a great offensive line coach, Bill Callahan, and it's just a great time to play. I played with an awesome group of guys, still friends to this day, and something about being an offensive lineman and being part of a line. It's pretty special and a pretty special game.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit as far as the relationship, because I know when we actually had Keith on back during the off season just after Coach Pry had been hired by the Hokies before I think you had come on at that point. And he kind of talked about obviously being a Penn State guy. He's a radio guy up there in Happy Valley now. So he had a lot of interactions with Coach Pry. What was that relationship and what was kind of the dynamic that brought you to Blacksburg?
Well, it was a number of things that kind of fell into place. One being the people that I knew through recruiting, they would always talk about Coach Pry and talk about what a great person he is. Because recruiting goes both ways sometimes, right? Sometimes you work your tail off and the young man and family feels like you're the best place for him. And sometimes it's another place. But if they'll tell you how much they respect that person afterwards, then you kind of get a little glimpse into who they really are, even when circumstances don't maybe fall their way. And then just competing against them, I always loved the way his guys competed. I thought they understood that they were sound. I thought they understood not only assignment, but they played together and they played with a competitive mindset. And then Blacksburg, I came here once when I was coaching at Pitt, and I'll never forget it. It was so loud. You couldn't hear yourself think on the sideline. And I'm like, man, these people love it. I mean, they love this place. And these kids that were playing in front of them, you could just feel the energy here. And, it was always a place that kind of stuck with me and just, so it's been awesome. I've been very grateful for the opportunity to be here, and I'm having a blast.
Well, we're grateful you're here, Coach. And it's funny. I hear the name Bill Callahan, and I'm correlating. That's the same Bill Callahan that's been in the NFL the last 20 years, right?
Yeah. Bill was our offensive line coach when we were at Wisconsin, and great coach, great technician. Just a great guy to learn under. And, you not only learned how to play the game, but you learned how to become a line. You learned all the steps that it takes. And that's always stuck with me.
Yeah, and it is something, we've heard Coach Pride mention, you're talking about the gelling, but let's ask this little schematic here. We're going, the old staff, we ran a primary zone-based scheme, and now with yours, and this is Brian telling me, so if it's wrong, tell him he's wrong, running a little bit more gap, a little bit more power scheme. What are the challenges when you have to make a change like that? And I know you've been doing this for, close to 15 years as an O-line coach. What are the challenges in changing? And you went from Wisconsin, Pitt, back to Wisconsin, now here. So this is the third time you've done it. What are those challenges?
I think there's always challenges when you come in anew. There's challenges not only from schematics, but there's challenges with relationships. There's challenges with not only relationships you have with the guys, but the guys have with each other. And I think they're just steps that you have to go through and take. And, I think in doing it, the one thing you got to be honest, and you got to be consistent. If something's good, you're going to say it's good. And if it isn't, then you're going to work on it to close the gap to get it that way. And when I look at schematics, because I know that was part of the question, the thing I always look at, you watch and you judge each play and you say, okay, if we do everything that we need to do, can this truly be successful or not successful? And then you kind of map out, you want to get rid of all those plays that you're going to struggle with regardless if the guys are on cue. You want to eliminate them in every way, shape, or form. How do you do it? Well, maybe it's not the formation to run that out of. Maybe it doesn't fit your guys, and then that's part of what you go through when you're coming into that group. You want to find something you can really hang your hat on, but yet it's a battle to get there.
Yeah, and I think what you're talking about is kind of finding that bread and butter that you're working with. And I know you've been talking about some of the line hasn't fully gelled yet, and you're kind of waiting to see that happen. And we've seen some uneven results so far. What are the steps that are still needed, you feel, to kind of get this where you feel comfortable from a running game perspective?
Well, it's like you say, the running game. It's kind of like running game protections. Like it's 11 guys playing, and there are times where you feel like something's maybe blocked up great, but maybe the timing from the backfield to the line of scrimmage isn't what you want. And then sometimes, boy, all those things are set up, and man, you needed that one last fit by a tight end or a wide receiver. And then, sometimes you're like, man, we got to get our feet across the line of scrimmage as an O-lineman in order to give this guy a chance to get the ball down so he can make his cuts on both sides of the line of scrimmage. So it's really all those things coming together. And when those things come together, it's beautiful. It's consistency. And that's what you fight for. It's not about what you can do well. It's about what you can do well consistently. And that's the grind you're in, man. And that's the grind day in and day out, week in and week out. And that's the grind we're in this season. So I do feel like we keep closing the gap on that, but we it's our fight right now, and it's a cool one. Like, these kids work. I like who they are. And how they take care of each other off the field. Like, they care about this place and they care about each other, and then working my tail off to try to help them to be at their best in the moment. And I like that about them. I'm grateful for working with them. I do. I enjoy them, and I think we'll continue to close the gap on those things.
All right. I know you can't play favorites here, but of your starting five right now, when you first got to campus, who was the one that sort of jumped on paper as, that's my leader? That's the guy that's going to hold this group together and help us take those strides. And you've got some good ones there.
Yeah, it's interesting you asked that, because, the thing I probably got told more than anything was most of the guys that had done a lot weren't going to be here anymore. And yet there were a lot of guys that, one way, shape, or form had experience, like they had played a little bit of ball. And, I was intrigued about Silas, and seeing him and meeting him, and then kind of, thinking, like, can we put this all together with him? And then, Johnny Jordan, as a guy that had been at multiple places, and his he's like, Johnny will turn 32. And then, you got Parker and Caden that played a lot of ball. So, I knew I was going to have some leadership talking to Silas. Like, I could feel that. And I knew, and he wanted to be that for the group. And Johnny, he's our communicator up front. And the guys trust him, and he knows things inside and out, and he puts in the extra work to make sure he does. I knew I would have some leadership out of those guys, and I have.
Awesome. Yeah. And that's kind of the two I think we had kind of keyed in on before the start of the season. So I'm glad that's kind of how it worked out there and behind the scenes. And you talked about Johnny with communication. I know that communication is such a big and important part of playing offensive line and being able to do those things as a unit. How is that coming so far, kind of across the board, with Johnny kind of leading the way there?
I think it's been pretty darn good. It hasn't been things where you've been off from the standpoint of assignment wise. I think, every once in a while, your technique will show up being off. And how does your technique show up being off? I tell the guys it starts with their eyes, right? If your eyes are in the wrong place, it doesn't matter what the rest of you is doing. You're kind of subject to having problems. So that eye discipline is huge. And, sometimes we get the right call. We got all that, but we let our eyes kind of wander, and then you can create issues, not only for you, but for the guy next to you if your eyes need to be there. But I think the communication from Johnny's been really good. I think the guys get it. Sometimes you get a look or two that, you might hope they'd be a little bit more confident with, but you're learning, and it's not that nobody wants to do it. You just got to keep closing the gap of doing it in the moment, and being able to do it to being able to do it consistently.
All right. I'm gonna go something Coach Price said a couple times, and I'm sure you're seeing it when he talks about guys pressing. Is that the thing with the eyes? Is that what you feel, or is it even more where when guys press? Brian's mentioned it to me when he played. There were times he pressed and he'd lose his technique. How do you coach the guys to say, listen, you've got to trust what you're doing, trust your eyes, trust your legs, and don't press it? How tough is that to coach with your first year with the group?
Yeah, no, I chuckle when you say that, because those are the exact words I say out of my mouth a lot about trusting your eyes. But Coach Pry, the one thing about him is when he speaks to that group, I always think he puts his thumb right on the heart of what needs to be said. And I've really enjoyed that. When someone's saying exactly what you're thinking, and you're like, man, that needed to be said right there. And so I know these kids are hanging on every word with that, because he's right in the moment with them. When I think you're pressing, I think you're playing the game thinking about yourself. You're thinking about not messing up. You're thinking about, am I going to do this right? And when you flip the script is when you play the game for the guys around you. When you want to do your job great, because man, this is going to be a great run right here for Keyshawn, or this is going to be, man, if I do this, I'm really going to help Gallo with the combo. Man, if I come off, and I put my helmet right here, man, this is going to make a much easier block for Jesse. Like if each guy plays in a way where you're playing for each other, you're spending a lot less time thinking about yourself. You're not thinking about doing things wrong. You're thinking about being great for the guys around you. And that's where I try to tell them, man, you guys got a great off the field culture. You care about each other so much. Bring that off the field culture right to the field. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Don't worry about yourself. Care about each other more than that. And that'll help you stay in the moment. And that'll help you overcome pressing. That'll help you overcome anxiety or being nervous. Stay in the moment. Let it go. Execute. Do it for those guys around you.
Love that. Yeah, for sure. And, you talked about the veterans in this group. Let's flip it a little bit and talk about some of the young guys on that line. We got, Xavier Chaplin that's come in this fall. Braylon made the position switch kind of late in the spring. And then we've had Jack Holyfield holding it down there, kind of center and guard a little bit during the spring there as well when you guys were banged up a little bit. How has it been with those guys, and are we looking at any point to kind of get some of those guys some extra snaps during the games? I know we saw Braylon a little bit against I think it was UNC in maybe a game before that as well. But are we? Yeah,
we played him. We played him in one game against West Virginia. The plan was to play a little bit more in that game. We tried to sneak him in as a tight end, and thought he would make a difference. They had some size on their defensive ends and thought he could be a good matchup. Didn't get a lot of playing time in that one, but got a little bit. I'd be happy to talk about those guys. Braylon, for one, I think has got an incredible future. He keeps pressing. He's right there from the standpoint of, getting him on the field more. And, he's had a few setbacks with injuries that have just held him away from making that step. But I think he's going to have an awesome future. He's super twitchy. I think he's got the ability to play center and guard. He's explosive. He's learning it. He's learning it on the run, having just kind of been part of it in camp. But I couldn't be more excited about him. Xavier Chaplin, just a mountain of a man. But every day he surprises you by how much he absorbs, how much he understands. He's got a kind of a unique, kind of intuitive sense of humor. And man, I think the sky's the limit. He's young, but I can't remember traveling a true freshman for, I think maybe one time. I think there was a true freshman I traveled at Wisconsin. So to be traveling Xavier and Braylon and traveling Johnny Garrett at times, traveling Brody Meadows at times. I mean, that's pretty much been unheard of in my experience. So I'm excited for that. I think those guys are worthy of it, and I think those guys will push and have the opportunity to make big impacts here. And I could definitely see Xavier, Braylon getting on the field and playing a little bit and just going in the next year with a little more experience.
Awesome to hear that, Coach. Appreciate the little background there on those young guys. Before we wrap up tonight and let you get back to what you're doing there in Merriman, ever since you've come to Blacksburg, what's kind of your food spot down there? What's the spot you hit up? Late night like this, you're in the office. Who are you calling to say, grab me some food and bring it in?
Well, Coach Quinn is like the aficionado of all food eateries. And let me tell you this, he takes great enjoyment in holding that title. And he is very much in the moment when he is in any establishment. So he has kind of taken me all over Blacksburg to like a whole bunch of places I probably never would have gone to myself. And it's been awesome, man. Like there is some great food and there are some great people in this town. And we've enjoyed it, man. And my family, because I was here for a little bit before they got here. They had finished, my boys finished baseball back in Wisconsin, and then they came out right before school started. So like taking them after that to a few of the places, whether it was greens or lefties or wherever, like we McAdoo's, like we would be all over and making stops. So I like kind of changing it up a little bit, and it's kind of neat showing them around after kind of Sean showed me around a little bit.
That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, we are not Virginia Tech grads. I played at Hampton City Division III, but we spent any time that we could in Blacksburg, so we are well versed in the food options there. We're up there all the time, so it's awesome to hear that you're kind of immersing yourself in that culture as well.
No, it's been good. I've made my stomps everywhere and back, and probably PK's probably gets the most action out of everything. So it's all pretty good.
Love it.
Got to get the cheetah wings in, right?
Got to get the cheetah on, man.
Well, Coach, I want to say a big thank you for jumping on with us. It's been a good time, and the insight to kind of what's going on, with the offensive line specifically, I think has been good, and I think good for the listeners to kind of pick up on. So we appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Been my pleasure, man. I appreciate you guys. And yeah, I know we got a great fan base, and they care about this program. They care about these kids, and that makes it fun. When you come out in that stadium and you feel that's why that's what reinforces all the work you put in. So we're going to grind, and we're going to keep grinding, and we're going to get there.
Awesome. Coach, again, we appreciate you taking the time. We know how busy you are. We look forward. We thank you for coming on tonight, and we look forward to having you off maybe sometime in the off season. And Brian and you can just sit down there and break down OL tape, and I'll just sit here, shut up, and listen. Take care of yourself, Coach Rudolph.
I appreciate it.
You, Coach.
Have a good night.
Well, that was a surprise.
It's always fun to get the last minute thumbs up.
Last minute. Well, I texted Brian at 6, and Brian was like, "Yeah, I hadn't heard back from Travis," and we were like, "Oh, it's okay. It's a busy week. We know these guys are busy." And about 5 minutes before we go on, I'm running a little late tonight. I jump in, and there's Brian, and I was like, "Holy shit, we got him!"
Well, I was on, and I was about to let you know that we got him, and then he was on, and I was talking to him while I was waiting for you to get on. So, we really appreciate Coach taking the time with us. That was awesome. Getting some insight into what's kind of going on behind the scenes there with the offensive line, and getting a little more input from the staff there, since we had Keontae Jenkins on last week, getting the players' perspective, getting a little bit of the coach perspective this week.
Absolutely, man. And now we're 25 minutes into the episode. We've got a ton more to unload. Yep, that's right. It is awesome to hear from him. And what a guy he was. We shot the breeze about 15 minutes before we literally pressed the button literally at the last possible minute before we could go. And for our folks, any of our hometown folks in South Boston listening, we were explaining South Boston Speedway late model stock car racing, sitting on the backstretch on a tailgate eating a bologna burger.
Burger in hand.
If you see a guy decked out in Virginia Tech gear and he asks for a beer and a bologna burger, it could potentially be Coach Joe Rudolph this summer, because we told him it's the perfect time to go down.
We pointed him in the right direction.
We're getting him in the right direction.
Yeah, I mean he's working that kind of South Side area with recruiting.
It's in his region. In his region.
So,
he said that was the of his region. That is his southernmost point is Halifax.
Yeah, he said he was checking out the website before he got on. He was like, "So you guys are from Halifax County?" He's like, "Yeah, I've been down in that area." Recruiting. I was like, all right, little yes, connection there. I like that.
Yes, sir. All right, Brian. Well, that was awesome to call Coach Rudolph, but we've got to put a game in the books. We've got to talk about some stuff, and we've got to preview some stuff. So, let's go into it. Let's talk about the UNC game. Hokies fall 41-10. I'll say this: the opening of the game was good. Those first two drives went pretty well. We stopped them. They got a first down, we stop them. we take the opening drive, go down, score 3, and then, like so many elements of getting things right and things being fixed, and, the flaws showed. And in the post-game press conference, and much like Coach Prine, now last week talking with Keonta, this week talking with Coach Rudolph, I'm not hearing a lot of sugarcoating on things. They're being honest, and Coach Price said it that we're probably going to start playing freshmen because of depth and for an evaluation process, and I don't think that shocks me or you.
No, it doesn't shock me at all. We've kind of flirted with it. I think after West Virginia, some of the discussions we were having last week. Is this the time? Is this the time? And I think at some point you're going to have to see what the young guys have. If you're noticing, number one, you're obviously having some depth concerns. Number two, if there's still inconsistency with the play of your veterans, you still want to, at that point, if you're getting inconsistent play from your veterans, then let's see what the young guys can do. See if they give you a little bit more upside, despite probably there being some growing pains with them playing with that process.
Absolutely. And that's what we're going to kind of talk about here tonight, is kind of look at a number of rooms, but I'm going to start with the quarterback room. And, Grant Wells, it wasn't a terrible game by any means, but it wasn't the game that you're going to need playing UNC. That's
yeah. And the thing I've kind of said, the thing that I've looked at with Wells is that he does enough things okay, but he's still at the point where he's leaving yards on the field. And, I get it with some of the deep balls. A deep ball is not the easiest play to make, but some of the more short to intermediate routes, either locking onto your primary for too long and not getting to the secondary that's open, missing guys that are open. And, against UNC, he didn't get a lot of help. There was several drops, and things that, contributed to, the day that Wells put out there. But I'll say this, he's not elevating the play of the guys around him.
Yeah.
So, does that mean it's time to pull a guy? I don't know. I think I'm at the point where I don't know if Wells is the answer for the next 3 years like we thought he might be.
Yeah.
We're not seeing
the progressions,
the progression as the season goes along. And we'll see if he gets there, if he continues down the line. But I think I'd like to see a little bit more Brown against Pitt, just to see what we have, see if the command of the offense is different, see if that kind of gives some other guys at other positions a spark as we kind of head into the middle part of this season.
Yep.
What are your thoughts, man?
Well, I'm almost to a point where we talked about playing the younger guys, right? I almost think it needs to be a cascade effect. I think you've got to try playing some younger guys. Coach Rudolph mentioned Chaplin. They really want to get Chaplin and Braylon some more time to play, and we got Braylon in one game. But that cascade effect of what if the run game gets a little bit better? What if some of the younger receivers get a little more reps, start making bigger plays? You get Malachi Thomas back potentially. So to me, I think it's like this time frame we're in between Pitt and NC State, make some other changes. And if by, say, NC State, Grant hasn't changed his level of play, then those last 4 games, let Jason Brown play. What's it going to hurt? We're likely going to be looking for another portal quarterback, which I know is something we probably didn't want to do, but you've got to move on. And we're going to talk about the portal in a little while here. But,
yeah. We're definitely still in an evaluation period at this point where we're trying to see what we have. And I think part of that is not just, okay, well, we're evaluating Grant. We obviously know that. But it's hard when Grant's struggling to also evaluate some of the other guys. Mm-hmm. Potentially Brown might be a stabilizing factor in that. Maybe. I don't think he has the upside that Grant does.
No.
Full stop. And I said that in the offseason.
You said that at the beginning, yeah.
We kind of know that there are limitations with putting Brown in there, but would he help us more in some of the things where Grant is deficient right now? That's the question we don't really have an answer to yet.
Could he maximize other areas of the field and other parts of the offense that help those guys improve? And we don't know until he actually plays significant reps, which is going to be interesting to see how it goes with the last 7 games. Now, something I'm really glad we had Coach Rudolph on, and this is our second talking point. The offensive line, it wasn't hit on all cylinders. And, Coach Rudolph talked about guys pressing the eyes, if your eyes are moving and things like that. We were under 3 a carry against a UNC defense that had not been very good. And we talk about is it time to let the young guys come in and play? And, luckily he kind of said it for us. And Brian, do you think it is time for those 2 young guys that he's mentioned, Braylon Moore and Xavier Chapman? Is it time to give them some run just to see if it can create potentially a spark on the offensive line?
I think so, at least in some sort of capacity. I don't know if you necessarily roll them out as the starters and give them the full game. But I think it'll be good to get them in at least for a handful of series each. Potentially started this week with Pitt. That'll kind of be a trial by fire, which we're going to talk about in a little bit in terms of what they do up front. But as we keep moving forward, I think it's going to be important to get those guys some additional time in the game, especially the 2 we've mentioned, Braylon Moore, Xavier Chapman, especially when a guy like, we've talked about the many struggles that Parker Clements has had in the season, and the fact that that Xavier Chapman is going to have to be one of the guys going into next year. Those 2 factors alone, I think, can be a good justification for getting him out there, especially a guy that is, a true freshman just coming into fall camp. The fact that he's absorbed enough where he's on that cusp right now, that says a lot about him and what his future is with this team.
But you also can't teach what he has. And Coach Rudolph said he is a mountain. He's 6'6". He's 340 pounds. He's a monster. He can move. And he can move. And he can jump. Holy God, that Duncan video still blows my mind. All right, so if you're going forward, now you can make this the rest of the season. You can say we're going to try this for 4 games. What would be your preferred 5? What would you like to see?
I think I'd like to see keep Silas at left. Give me Braylon, Johnny, Caden, and then Xavier at right. I think that'll give us the best chance, the best combination of talent versus building towards what we're going to look like next year, because we know that both Moore brothers are going to be in the mix next year. We know that Chaplin's going to be in the mix next year. And then you keep your 2 veterans that are going to be out of eligibility at the end of this year in there is to kind of hold the unit together.
Yep, and one's on the left side with one of the younger guys, and then Moore, Chaplin on the right side with the lesser of the experience. That's kind of where you maybe get a little shaky, but I think things have got to change. I think you've got to – we were talking about the gelling and all that going on. Eventually, when does it come to a point when, okay, things aren't gelling? Is it just the group's not going to gel on the field? And as much as they care, which is good to hear, I have a feeling that if they didn't care, I don't think we would have heard that come out of Coach Rudolph's mouth, because there's no reason to say that. So it'll be interesting going forward with the offensive line and with the quarterback.
And he was talking about it's little things, right? It's these little things that kind of add up, and he was talking about pressing and talking about playing not to make a mistake is still it's never a winning strategy. If you're not playing with that confidence and that it's overthinking, it's so many things that kind of come into play that can hinder you as an offensive lineman, and because you are having to work as a unit and as a group, and there's so much of what you do that impacts what other people are able to do on a given play call.
Yep.
And so, if you don't have all of that working in a full tandem with the right mindset, then there's going to be inconsistencies and struggles, and that's what we've seen.
Exactly. All right, let's flip and talk a little bit about the defensive side of the ball. A couple things there, and then we'll wrap up with a few more places that we're seeing. We felt the secondary was the strongest part of this team, and Saturday, what we've been hearing all year, depth's an issue. Well, depth against the best passing team we faced all year reared its ugly head and bit us in the ass. And with Dorian Strong out and then Jalen Stroman out in that first half, basically our strongest unit against the best quarterback and probably some of the best skill position players not having it showed. And it showed quick in that first half.
Yep.
But
not having Stroman, not having Strong, and it was the strongest unit against the best quarterback, and it showed that we're not quite there depth wise. No. But it was good to get some extra time for DJ, for Mansour, for Cam. They were able to come in. The moment didn't look too big, especially for Delaney. Delaney looked like he belonged out there.
Yes, he did.
And
all
three of them, held up very well. So I mean, the future is bright at the position. But
them along with Stroman.
Yeah,
I mean that's probably your starter. Well, yeah, that's probably your starter next year with Strong. So
yeah.
It shows really good. And again, Mansour showed like right out the gate with that tackle for loss and then a couple good coverage plays. But when it rears its ugly head against a team of that caliber and the way Drake May's playing right now, Drake May, 5-star real deal. There is, I don't think we did. I don't think we downplayed him last week when we previewed him.
I mean, the two things that I could critique him on are two things that don't really impact him that much, especially if you don't get a rush on him. I mean, his footwork still needs, some polishing, and he needs to not take unnecessary hits. That's the two critiques of his game. Other than that, I mean, shoot, dude is in his bag right now.
He absolutely is. All right, let's flip up. Let's talk about up front again, and then about the depth up front kind of hurting. Because I mean, to say when we were at 24 with less than 9 minutes still left in the third quarter, eventually a couple minutes later, the wheels fell off, the depth fell out, and the floodgates kind of opened to get it to 41, completely out of range. And something, and Coach Prime mentioned it, I caught portions of interviews, not playing common football. You're down 14. If you can go out and get a score to open the half, right? It's a 7-point game. They've got to press a little bit more. They didn't have to press. And once we didn't do anything with the second drive, it was just kind of like, all right, we can take risks. They did. They scored 17.
And the problem, like that opening drive, of the second half, I mean, there was some promise there. There was some calls, I think, early that went the way we wanted to, and then we kind of got in that kind of short yardage situation that we've seen some struggles in this year, and we weren't able to convert when we needed to. And but flipping it, when that happens, that puts so much strain on the defensive depth. So just like in the DB room, we saw it along the defensive line. Yeah. We saw Nelson, McCray, Panay. I mean,
Panay got banged
out there. They're getting banged. Guys in and out of that rotation. It's kind of hard to get pressure, and when you got guys banged and you're already struggling to get a little bit of pressure on the guy, and he's the guy you have to get pressure on to really impact. It's a feast back there. He was just able to kind of pick guys off,
and he was. And those three guys we've been happy with this year. But again, where it shows when you start playing a better offense is it shows that they're all three young. They're all three McCray, it feels like he's old, but McCray's only a redshirt freshman. They've only been playing, they all may have 20 games between them. So in the reality of things, they're still young. I mean, I think it's okay what's happening. I think them getting reps against elite offenses and seeing how quick things are happening in front of them, that tape gets put on Sunday, right, Brian?
Yeah.
Here's where we've got to work better. This is where we've got to work better. But I think now up front defensively, because of where we are, I think we've got to strategically start thinking about letting some of the guys play the 4 games. Now, if anybody pops, I think you burn a red shirt. I don't care. Because the more tape and the more play you get with them, it's going to help long run. Like right now, Malachi Madison. Malachi's got the body, right? If nothing else, he's going to be difficult. Even as inexperienced as he is, Malachi's 310 pounds. That still is difficult for even the most technician and strong offensive lineman to move. Give him his 3 games. Think about Stretch Carroll. Do they give Gunnar Givens? Get them, and Prize mentioned it, let them play. Because if you're letting them play, at least it's the film, right, Brian? It's the teaching moments.
Yeah.
Oh, you lined up here. You went here. You should have went this way. Look at your footwork. And I know
they can learn something from the process, and you might, find a guy that can give you a boost in the short term.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'd love to see that happen, and it's got to be done strategically because by all means, if, like this weekend against Pitt, something fluky happens and we're in that game, it's going to be tough to put them in those situations, right? Yeah. It's going to be tough to put them in. If it's like I'll make my prediction in about an hour here. But if it's a 21-21 game late, it's really tough to go say we're going to put in 4 freshmen to play this series.
Yeah.
Well, you're still trying to win a game. If there's other points in the within the game you can put them in to get that experience, do it. But I think they have to look to these next 7 games, getting those guys those reps. Running back room, I thought we had Malachi coming back. Obviously, he's closer than he's ever been. He's on the depth chart this week. King still solid. He had 9 carries for 50-some yards, broke a couple good ones. And Jude continuing to show the good traits where that room right there, those 3 have eligibility to come back next year.
Yep.
All 3 of them. It would be King's final year. Thomas and Bryce are young bucks. So I think you've already burned Bryce, right? You might as well make him part of the game plan every week.
Yeah, I mean, especially I think when you get Malachi back at full steam, I think that's when you start seeing Holston's carries kind of move further and further down the depth chart. Because they kind of have similar skill sets in terms of being competent between the tackles, big enough to kind of get some first downs, by running people over if they can. Whereas King and Duke are kind of a little more undersized.
Yeah. Shifty.
So I think that's the opportunity, and I think that's when you start seeing Holston kind of slip down the depth chart a little bit further.
But we're seeing it also in game. I mean, Holston only had 2 carries. He only had 2 carries. I couldn't give you a snap number. I know that he was out there in some of the passing situations.
He was out there in passing situations. He is a good blocker.
He is. Yeah. He is. So, we'll see how that goes. Wide receiver, tight end room. Brian?
Just as we pop it on the screen here. We'll talk about that. Connor Blumrick. I mean, yeah, we haven't seen him kind of designed into the offense as much as I think we wanted to see him. He hasn't been the kind of primary guy, the do-it-all guy that we thought we were going to get when the season started. He's worked in here or there. He's given us some quality snaps, but he absolutely is not working as a primary component of the offense at this point. But somebody that we did finally get to see, and he showed out.
Do it. You're so happy about this.
Daquan Wright. Daquan Wright.
I mean, y'all don't know. This guy texts me, I think, that first play, and it's like, see, I've been right since I first saw him on tape. And he did look good. much like you said, Mansour Delaney belonged out there. Daquan Wright looked like he belonged out there on Saturday against UNC. I mean, 100%. I mean, he had 4 catches, 31 yards. He got into zones. He beat some guys off the ball, and that's what you want. And now they have to make the decision, right?
Yeah.
Do you go ahead and just say, screw it, or do you burn him?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's going to depend on if we see kind of a similar output this week. If he's involved in the game plan, if he continues to kind of show that progress, if he's helping you got to go ahead and burn it, because it's going to help him for next year too. Because it's only going to give him some more opportunities.
Because he's taking over that Drake role. He's taking over the Drake role next year, and probably with a lot more fanfare than Drake's playing this year.
Well, he's probably going to take over. He's going to be doing what Drake's doing and doing some of what Connor's doing. So he's going to kind of be a little bit of jack of all trades come next year. So getting him out there where he can kind of do a little bit of this, a little bit of that, that's only going to help us going into next year. And if he shows out again like he did this week, 25 plus yards, 3 or 4 receptions. I mean, that's some quality work for a tight end, especially one, true freshman just got to camp in the fall. So we'll see if he can make some more ground up. I tell you, the thing I haven't seen a lot of, getting a lot of buzz out of fall camp was Holloway, and we haven't really seen him get much run. Is it time to kind of work him into the receiver rotation with some of these other guys?
Maybe. And that's the whole thing. I think you're at the point that you can start taking those risks. It's you're 2-3. You're not 5-0. You're not 4-1. You're not trying to, is there a bold possibility out there? Yeah. Weirder things have happened, but it's, again, finding who's going to be that guy. And maybe Holloway is the next guy that you see out there get some run. I'm going to go to linebacker room real quick, and I'm going to make this statement. I know Dax is the leader of the linebacker group, and I know Dax is a big figure in Virginia Tech football since 2016. And he's a Hokie through and through. You love him for it. He plays with passion. He plays with heart. He plays with fire. But sometimes we hold him on the field just a little bit too long when the matchup isn't right. When they started carrying him up the seam numerous times and they beat him, you've got to just cut it off and say, okay, they're taking him out of what he does best. Those intermediate zones and deep zones, that's not his game.
Anytime they saw us in cover 2, they were picking on Dax.
And what I'm saying with this linebacker group we have right now between Jenkins, Walker, Lawson, McDonald, all these young, more athletic guys than Dax, you've got to go ahead and mix it up. And again, I think that's something we saw with Johnson last week is, all right, we're at the point now, start mixing. Find your nickel next year.
Yeah.
I don't know who the Mike's going to be next year. I really think, just from Brent Pry discussing it, I think Brent Pry wants Jaden Keller to be the Mike. And I think Johnson is going to fight him for it. I think that is going to be next spring, roughly about 8 months from now. Did I do that right? Yeah. No. 7 months from now. My months are 6 months from now. Spring next year, I think.
Math is hard, guys.
It is hard. After having a pounding headache this afternoon, math is very hard. But I think that's going to be such an intriguing position. And I think right now, the next couple of weeks, it's not going to be worried about as much. But I think we get to NC State. I think NC State's going to try to take advantage of Dax. Completely.
Yeah, and I'll say this when we talk about taking advantage of that cover 2 and knowing that Dax has to get kind of that deep middle. Not very many quarterbacks at the college level can recognize that, make that throw.
True.
So this isn't a every week type deal, but at the same time, we still do have some good quarterbacks on our schedule remaining that can take advantage of that. But yeah, I'm with you. I think he liked Keller. I think that in terms of next year taking over for Mike, I think it's between Keller and Johnson. I think Johnson probably has, it seems like has the understanding of the defense down a little bit better. But I think he likes Keller's physical traits better.
Yeah.
So I think the combination of the two, can Keller pick it up where he can call the defense, where he can be that communicator for the defense. I think that's another big piece to watch going through the rest of this year and into the start of next year.
But you can mix it right now, right?
But you can mix it. Yeah.
You can mix
and we've seen. I mean, we the depth chart especially. I mean, Will has been a rotating cast of characters the entire season so far in terms of the depth chart. We've seen Keller at the top of that list. We've seen Lawson at the top of the list. We've seen McDonald at the top of the list. It's kind of been, I think they're still kind of figuring out the balance. I think sometimes it's still being dictated by opponent. So there's that aspect as well. So,
yep.
As we get further along, we'll see if any guy emerges at that position. And obviously, depending on the eligibility situation, you still got Tisdale in there as well. That could be a factor. I don't think at this point that we're going to get that resolved this season, but he'll be in the discussion potentially next year. So, that's going to be an interesting room to watch. All
right. So we're going to put that to bed, and we're kind of putting to bed UNC with that right there, because the next two things we're going to talk about, even though some of it's on UNC, it's a little bit more towards looking to the future and trying to have people calm down. A lot of chatter about Bowen's not cut for this scheme isn't good, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Brian, I know you saw it. We had a chat about it. And Brian decided just to look at some extra tape. Other than what he's seeing during watching the game live, Brian's a junkie on football, y'all. I mean, y'all don't understand this. To the point, well, we're all sports junkies that probably listen to this. Brian's now going 50-50 stack in front of him there in the man cave. And as he said, can watch football, we can keep the family happy. So I know you're doing a lot more breakdowns, but let's talk about the scheme, because I know there were times, again, you got frustrated on Saturday where he had schemed somebody wide open and we didn't hit him.
Yeah, and kind of the thing that, like, kind of putting a big bow on it, I don't think we're underplaying relative to our talent, but we also aren't doing a good job of maximizing the scheme relative to that talent right now. So there's yards kind of all over the field that we're missing, whether it's execution error by the quarterback, drop balls, missing a block, not quite getting to a block, something that turns a 8-yard gain into a 1 or 2 yard gain because somebody didn't quite get to their spot. Somebody took a bad angle. Somebody let somebody cross their face. I mean, there's just these little things. And I get that some people are frustrated with the calls and the scheme. I like the scheme. The scheme is good. The where I have a frustration, and this is mostly looking at Bowen's relative inexperience as a Power 5 play caller, not changing and rotating personnel soon or often enough. And I'd like to see some development or refinement to kind of bridge the gap with these shortcomings week to week. The things that he is struggling with the most is those adjustments, and then not having kind of an extra wrinkle or a big new wrinkle week to week that kind of throws off the opposing defense, something that they don't have tape on yet. That's the kind of things that I think is where he's not quite hit his stride yet. And some of that, especially with the latter, might just be we're not doing enough of our bread and butter stuff good yet that I'm not trying to throw more at them week to week.
Yeah. So it's again, that's why I wanted Brian to speak to it. Again, I still like the scheme. I still think he's scheming people open. I think from what you've told me, there are people open. We're just not getting there. And it's kind of goes back to Grant. And again, another knock on Grant. We're not trying to bury the guy here, but Brian, you've said it. You said it since week one. He locks onto that first receiver when a lot of times it's the second read that's getting open. That if he got off of that guy quicker, there's a guy wide open, or and not a relatively easy throw, but a throw you can complete and get yards with.
Yeah, and like I said, he needs to get some help from his receivers. There was a lot of drop balls. I know it was a little bit of a slick situation out there from time to time, but
a little misty. Yeah.
You got to grab those. The other team did not struggle with drops the way we did. So
absolutely,
there's only so much you can blame on the conditions there. So you got to help your quarterback out, but your quarterback has to understand and work within the framework of the scheme and get through those progressions where he can get the ball to the guy that is coming open in the offense. And I know another thing, we talked about this a lot on the sideline, on the timeline. Someone was saying, check with me. They hate the check with me. And I kept saying right back to him, if we can get into a rhythm and we can go tempo, you're going to see less check with me.
But we can't.
But right now, we're not dictating to the defense, and when we're not dictating to the defense, then scheme matters more. And so you're going to see a lot more check with me, so we get in the best possible situation for that down and distance.
There we go. All right, before we jump over to Pitt, we're going to take a look at a few kind of college football news and notes. Obviously, one that probably caught this fan base's eye more than anybody. Speaking of Robbie Compton, we were talking to Joe.
Robbie kind of going back to my point there about the bread and butter.
If you can't get the bread and butter right, why add a wrinkle? There you go. All right, but little news and notes. Big one that caught every Hokies fan's eyes was Devin Ford no longer with the Penn State team. Sounds like he is preserving his red shirt and essentially will enter the portal. We're on now the 45-day portal timeline. I'm pretty sure Brent Pry probably had a hand in recruiting him because he was up in Northern Virginia. So as far as, let's make the running back room bigger. Let's make the running back room bigger.
I have no big problem with us pursuing that because we need frontline talent across the board. I mean, there's not a position group where more than a handful of starters where you feel are absolutely locked in, rock solid, couldn't be pressed by anybody else that you could get in the portal. So I think that's where, you got to explore your options. Running back is probably not a need position, but we could definitely upgrade the position, I think, and create more depth there. I mean, you look at a team like Pitt that we're about to talk about that, they only got 2 healthy right now, but they've got essentially 3 starting caliber running backs.
Yep.
And so, we've had that in our past, looking back at 2009 and 2010. So, I mean, we understand, we understand the ability to run 3 NFL caliber running backs out there.
Yeah. We didn't ever run them correctly out there. Don't get me into that. When you had Evans, Wilson, and Williams, and somehow we did not manage to have like a top 15 offense with 3 NFL running backs, multiple NFL wide receivers, and an NFL quarterback. You want to get it? Let's go into 2009 episode 2010 and get me fired up. All right, we'll keep moving, Brian. we got to roll here. All right, Carl Durrell out of Colorado. I don't think that's a shocker. I mean, literally the worst team in P5, both sides of the ball. No shock there. But the shock one came Sunday night. Paul Chris out at Wisconsin. Paul Chris basically, it's not been a great start to this season. The guy's been there 6 years. He's went to 3 BCS bowls. He went 13-1 one year. He won, double-digit games 4 times. His 2 bad seasons were 8 and 9. I'm
and one of those wasn't one of those. His worst year was the COVID year.
I don't count the COVID year.
Okay,
I don't count that. You look at everything around. I mean, back in what year was it? 2013. They went 13-1. The only loss was to Ohio State. And they lost to them by 6. And if it's one of these things where if Wisconsin fired him, well, he can't get us over the top. There's not many people who can get you over the top, but now you're taking a guy who could potentially get you in a few years into the playoff run every year, and you're firing him? And I'm not knocking Jim Leonhard. Jim Leonhard's a hell of a defensive coordinator. But, I mean, if we need a special assistant to the head coach next year, I'm hoping Joe.
There's a relationship there that we could foster.
It's still good, man.
Let's hope maybe we still need some depth on the offensive line for next year too. So we'll see if any of those guys.
Maybe they didn't take kindly to it. Let's hope the offensive lineman did take kindly to firing Paul Crisp up there.
I'd be fine with that.
I'd be fine with it. One last piece of news here, and this is sort of hits close to us. This guy played at UVA. His name was Tyrone Davis. If you're where we're from, Halifax County, Virginia, Tyrone Davis is one of the 3 sports gods that came through our high school. Tyrone went to UVA. He broke Herman Moore's record, and I know he's a UVA guy. And some people are like, what the hell are you talking about this guy? He's from our hometown and was probably the greatest football player that ever came through there. He played 7 years in the league. And he passed away today. And, for us, he was just a little bit like we were 4 and 5 years old. He was playing. It was before our team won state championship. But I wanted to mention it because, again, there's a big 3 that came through Halifax. Tyrone was one. He played multiple years in the NFL. He was a D1 college stud. Terry Davis, who it felt like played forever in the NBA, and Jeremy Jones. And when I read it passed away, it kind of broke my heart a little bit. And I know, Brian, you played more organized football, and I know he was around back then. It's one of those things, man.
Yeah, I mean, you always have those hometown heroes that you kind of looked up to and respected, and he was that era that ushered in the best team that Halifax County has ever had. He was the Dwight Vick of that situation. He kind of laid the groundwork, and then you reached that height in 1999. So he was kind of like that for us. And he was there when Fred Palmore was the head coach, and then there was some change there, and I look back, and like I said, he was one of the guys that we were kind of we point to say, okay, well, they came from here. When you're from Halifax County, small school relative to a lot of the teams that we were playing at the time. And definitely one of the more rural schools in those districts. You kind of look to guys like that and say, hey, if he can make it out, if he can do those big things, maybe I can too. So really sad, really sad situation, but prayers and thoughts to his family and to the community.
Absolutely. All right. Before we get into Know the Enemy Pitt, we're going to take a quick pause from our digital partners.
You don't technically need this car. You say that out loud to yourself. You say, I have no space. You say, I'm just looking. Then you click. Then you zoom in on photo number 87 and whisper, oh no. Then you text a friend, the one who always enables you. You say to yourself, this is the last one, knowing it is not. You don't need this car. But maybe, just maybe, this car needs you. Bring a trailer. It's never just a car.
So now we move on to Pitt. And we go to, Heinz Field. It's always going to be Heinz Field. I don't care what the new name is.
Acrisure Stadium.
Heinz Field. And we take a look at The Pitt Panthers coming off a loss to Georgia Tech, which I know that game was on ACC Network. I'm here in the cave Saturday night. We're watching a movie. I got games going on. And I got somebody texted me, like, my cousin from South Carolina texted me. He's like, what the hell is Pitt doing with Georgia Tech? And I was like, what the hell do you mean? I looked down, and it's like they're winning. It's like, what the hell? Yep, I agree with that, Robbie, 100%. All right, so we're going to look at them. Let's start with Keaton Slovis, the quarterback. He is a USC transfer to Pitt. When he came out in 2019, he was a 3-star quarterback, go to USC. If you don't recall, he did take over the starting job from another guy we saw this year, JT Daniels, where he had a really good 2019 season where he threw for 30 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. So far this season, been kind of steady Eddie, right at 1,000 yards, 5 TDs, 2 picks. What are we seeing on Slovis right now? Because this was a kind of a big pickup for them on in the transfer portal this year, Brian.
Yeah, we're seeing some similar things that we saw from him in 2020, 2021 with Slovis there. He's a pro ready in terms of his accuracy and pocket awareness. Really good at reading defenses, and pretty regularly he gets through his progressions. Functional athleticism in terms of escaping the pocket, but he typically only scrambles to kind of buy time to pass or get rid of the football. He's not trying to scramble for first downs like we saw Drake May do last week. He has functional arm strength, but so he can make all the throws, but he's not a guy that's going to press it downfield consistently. And he will occasionally lock onto his primary read when he's pressured consistently. So if we can get some pressure on him, we can potentially get him to situations where he's making some bad choices with the football.
How did he look against the blitz? Because I think that's what we're going to probably have to live and die by that the rest of the season.
Yeah, and I think the way they operate, they are not an air raid, they are not an RPO. There's some elements that they have in their offense, but they're more multiple, they're more pro style. We're going to have opportunities if we can slow their running game down where we can get after him and cause him some problems.
All right, so good deal there. Again, Slovis is a good quarterback. I'm not going to knock him at that whatsoever. But as someone, he's not what Kenny Pickett was in his 18th year, which, now Kenny Pickett's transitioned to the league. Kenny had a great Sunday, Brian. No balls of his hit the ground.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, 3 were to the other team.
Yeah, it's one of those weird games where you complete everything, just some of them didn't go the right way for you.
Yeah. All right, let's take a look now. We're going to look at 2 of their running backs because the first guy we're going to talk about here, Israel Abanikanda, has been banged up recently. So not sure if we're going to see him, but Brian wanted to take a look at both because obviously we don't talk about one. The guy will still show up. Israel, 4-star prospect when he came out in 2020 from Brooklyn, New York, Abraham Lincoln High School, the number 1 player in the state of New York, a top 200 player on 247. And, so far in his career, solid numbers, just under 250 attempts, right over 1,250 yards since 2020. Had a solid season last year. We're going to talk about a second one, but let's talk about Israel up front. What's he bringing to the table as far as it goes with their running back room?
Yeah, Izzy's an experienced back with really good speed. He's really excellent at hitting the home run when he gets to that second level. Great second level vision. I'd give him only an average grade at the first level. He'll get in there. But if you can stop him at the first level, you're going to kind of keep him in check. But if he gets to that second level, he is a big, big factor. He's not really a threat in the receiving game beyond check downs. They don't do a whole lot with him in the screen game. They don't send him on those wheels or anything like that very consistently. Occasionally he'll flare out. He'll catch something like that. But primarily he's going to be a check down threat in the passing game. But again, his big ability is that home run threat when he gets to the second and third level of the defense.
Yeah. And I know we were talking about, Brian, we chatted this week. You were saying the guy you feel like is the best is the guy that's currently out in Rodney Hammond Jr. But when Izzy got banged up, they brought in Vincent Davis, who's getting some more run, a 3-star out of Cardinal Gibbons High School in Fort Lauderdale, Florida in the 2019 class. What are they showing with Davis? Kind of a smaller back at 5'8", about 175 pounds. What's he doing for the Pitt offense if he's going to be the primary guy Saturday afternoon?
Yeah, he's a little bit more steady Eddie in terms of his production, whereas Izzy's definitely more of a boom and bust type back. If he's not breaking a big one, usually it's a modest gain. Davis could kind of hit off those, 8 to 15 yarders a little more consistently. And that's mainly because he's more of a threat on the edge than he is between the tackles. So when he gets to the edge, he's getting some consistent yardage there. And he's kind of a good change of pace back relative to what Izzy does well. It gives a little bit of extra wiggle at the line of scrimmage. And they do use him a little bit more in the passing game than they do Abanikanda. So you can look for that as well. And his role definitely increased when Rodney Hammond went down. And I think Hammond's probably the most balanced of the three. He's really good at kind of getting those hard yards, but he's also a guy that when he gets to the second level, he can hurt you for a big run.
Yeah, and Vincent Davis, the last 2 games, which was against Rhode Island and obviously the loss against Georgia Tech, 22 carries, 131 yards on the ground with a touchdown. You mentioned the receiving threat, Brian. 6 receptions, 48 yards. So obviously, it's kind of weird to look at those 2 games, but what they were doing is kind of balancing and everything. So he does have that potential threat. I hope he's the guy versus Izzy this week, or they're maybe trying to get Izzy back, because the one thing I don't think that the team and our team in general can't hold is someone breaking a big one for a touchdown. We saw how much that hurt against UNC when they hit the tight end seam route and some of the other deeper plays. So a team that we can keep in front of us and players we can keep in front of us is going to definitely be big. Now, talking about keeping in front of you, one guy we do need to worry about in the outside is Jared Wayne, 6'3", 210 pound. He is a big-bodied wide receiver. So far this year, 19 receptions, 354 yards, averaging right at 19 per reception. And when he came out, Clearwater, Florida, a very low 3-star. So, something we talk about, give Pitt the credit. They develop guys. They develop guys into being good collegiate players. And believe it or not, primary recruiter, remember this name? Kevin Sherman, the Hokies' old wide receiver coach. What are you seeing with him on tape? And is he the guy that Keaton will lock on sometimes?
He is the guy that he will lock on often. He uses him as their primary receiving threat and kind of as a safety blanket. So he is their primary target. Mostly an intermediate range threat. A lot of stuff in that 15 to 25 yard range for him. We'll usually have at least one 25 yard plus catch a game. So he will have an occasional, deep ball that goes his way, that can burn us in one play, but he's more of a stick mover and a Mr. Reliable for Slovis. He's the guy that he's going to look for to kind of move the sticks if they're in those third and long and medium situations.
All right. Another name to keep an eye on is Kanata Mumpfield in the wide receiver room. He is leading the team in reception, as he put probably his second best game together against Georgia Tech. Did you see Mumpfield on tape? Is he their slot guy or is he their Y?
They move him around, but he primarily works underneath. He's a lot of the short stuff.
Okay. Makes sense. Averaging right at 10 a pop. So makes sense there. All right, Brian, you've kind of mentioned it already. Let's hear a little bit about their O-line in this offensive scheme.
Yeah, it's a multiple pro style attack. lot more balance this year, and than we've seen with Whipple. Now that they got Signetti there calling the offense, they run the ball a whole lot more than I think we're used to from a Pitt attack. They are more tight end heavy than we've seen recently. Although they don't use them a ton as weapons, they're definitely in there for blocking. They'll use a fullback. They got a heavy package where they'll bring in an extra offensive lineman. So they really are kind of a little bit more old school in terms of how they like to attack a defense. And they've got a veteran line that can be dominant at times, but they can also be confused and overwhelmed with pressure. So I think that's probably how we're going to attack them is just try to get them kind of off their game by run blitzes and bringing some pressure on those long down and distances.
Yeah, absolutely. They are running a lot more than they had in the past. Last year they were a pretty balanced team. This year they're 60-40 against the run. So, but I think that's who Narduzzi is, though. I think if he sees that he doesn't quite have the talent, he'll play his brand of defense, which, we're about to talk about here, and sort of let the cards where they fall. And it's been in the past. And we've been the beneficiary. It's why they lose some games sometimes. He does get into a conservative shell. But let's talk about the defense, and let's talk about kind of the man in the middle, guy we've talked about, I feel like, multiple times since we've started this podcast. So how long has he been here? Cerveza Dennis, the 6'1", 230-pound linebacker, 2019 class, a 2-star out of the state of New York. They've definitely developed him into a very solid collegiate linebacker. And what's the tape looking like with him, Brian?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen Cerveza Dennis now for a while. He does a really good job attacking the gap. He's used heavily in the blitz game. They'll send him up the middle. They'll send him off the edge with some line stunts. Does a good job of using his hands to shed blockers, and is great in pursuit. He can get picked on in coverage, though, especially when he's in zone. He looks really, really hesitant a lot of times when he's in zone coverage. When he's able to get a kind of a more single read in man coverage, he does a little bit better. He does have that athleticism, but he looks a little lost in zone from time to time. And with that being said, he can get influenced with some misdirection, some window dressing, and things like that. That'll get him out of position.
All right. Yeah. Now, as far as it goes, he is, one of their better tacklers. The guy's already got 38 tackles in, 5 games, 4 tackles for loss, some sacks. What are those sacks? Are those sacks coverage sacks, or are they using him on a blitz? Oh, you already said it.
Yeah, they use him on a blitz pretty regularly. Yeah.
Sorry, y'all. I'm telling y'all, my head is murdering me right now. All right, let's flip over. Next guy you want to talk about is a guy at the back end, and that's Eric Hallett, the 5'11", 195-pound defensive back out of Cypress, Texas. A 3-star when he came out in 2018. And so far this year, 18 tackles, couple interceptions, 2 fumble recoveries, 5 pass breakups. Are they using him a lot in zone, Brian, or are they kind of mix and matching with him?
Mix and match. He's really good at man coverage, though. When they're bringing those pressures, a lot of times he will get locked up in man coverage, usually on the tight end. On the slot opposite the tight end. And he's really good at diagnosing and attacking the short stuff, behind the line of scrimmage, passing game, things like that. He'll get in there, get the tackle for loss. Not afraid to bring a little lumber. But just like Dennis, he can be influenced with the play action, the RPO, the misdirection when he's in zone coverage. So that's an area where we might be able to take advantage when they're not bringing pressure.
All right. Let's go to the defensive line. There's one guy that kind of caught your eye. I was expecting to see you put 2 defensive linemen on your rundown when you sent it over to me, but you only put 1. Kalijah Cansey, the 6', 275-pound defensive lineman. out of Northwestern High School in Miami, Florida, a 3-star when he came out in 2019. So far this year, 19 tackles, 7.5 for loss, 3 sacks. Where's he primarily playing, Brian, and what is he bringing to the table?
Yeah, he's primarily the 2-eye on this 4-man front. He brings an elite combination of strength and athleticism. Great at penetrating at the snap, sheds blockers well in the run game. Has a really great motor as a pass rusher, but he does rely a lot on his physical tools when rushing the passer. So if you can slow his initial burst, he doesn't really have a secondary move other than just, keeping going and eventually trying to work his way to the quarterback. So, that's an area where if we can get a good punch, keep our feet moving in front of him, we can potentially slow him down a little bit. But, I really like what he brings to the table. He's going to be a handful for sure.
Who do you primarily see matching up with him Saturday on our line?
It's going to be a lot of the interior there, man. It's going to be, Jesse, Johnny, and Caden.
Okay.
He usually, it's going to depend on the strength. Like I said, he's usually in that 2-eye role, so he'll be on Johnny's plate a good deal with all those gap schemes where he's blocking back against the 2-eye.
All right, awesome. All right, let's flip back. Let's go back to the secondary for one more player you wanted to talk about, and that's Brandon Hill, a 5'11", 195-pound defensive back. Another Florida kid, 3-star out of Waukeva High School in Apopka, Florida, 2019 class. So far this year, we're taking a look at him, and we've, 32 tackles. Only 1 pass deflection, Brian. I am assuming he's the strong safety.
Yep, strong safety. Actually, the fastest player on the team.
Okay.
He's, sub 4.4 speed. They got him routinely matched up against a tight end or the outside slot guy in man coverage. Really great in pursuit. He covers a lot of ground really quickly. He does struggle sometimes when he's accounted for by a blocker. He doesn't do a good job of getting off of blocks very well, especially when it's coming from a tight end or a lineman. And he also can be influenced with that play action, the RPO, the misdirection stuff. They primarily use him in the run game, and they also will use him a lot in zone and man. So they mix and match him a lot. Again, everybody on this team is going to have some degree of man coverage in their belt because of how much pressure they bring.
All right, that makes sense. Now, when you talk about saying he's covering, he does well covering the tight end and routinely matched up. Is it one of those things where he's maybe more playing a shadow and just using that athleticism to, okay, they're going to make the catch, but when they make the catch, I'm going to turn the jets on, get there and get them down?
Yeah, he does a good job of kind of, like I said, closing that gap. He doesn't really do a whole lot of when he's matched on the tight end, it's usually not in zone. It's usually in those man coverages, and he does a good job of staying on his man and closing the gap. So, you might get the completion, but you're not going to get a lot of those yards after the catch.
Got it. All right, let's do a quick high-level view of the scheme here with Pat Narduzzi's 4-2-5.
Yeah, it's an attacking 4-2-5. We've seen it for years now. It's very familiar to Hokies. They'll be bringing pressure consistently, especially if we don't establish a run game. If they feel like they can tee off on us and make Grant Wells have to make a play, that's what they're going to do.
And they probably will.
Yeah. So they pursue really well as a unit in the running game, and they flow to the point of attack very quickly. So you got to be, getting to your spot, staying on your blocks, because they will flow to the ball and create some havoc there. But as I've said with the individual players, as a team defense, they can also be susceptible to play action, RPO, and misdirection. So I imagine that we're going to probably have some of that in our pocket this week. And since they bring pressure a lot, they're running a lot of man. So we're going to eventually have to get some where we beat them, 20 yards plus down the field to keep them honest.
Absolutely.
And they're especially susceptible to that if the pressure doesn't get home. If we're able to be sure up front, give Grant a good pocket, that's only going to make it harder on the back end for them to hold up in that man coverage.
Yep. All right, so let's flip it over to know the enemy and the Hokies keys. And I think, Brian, that's one of the first things we look at, right? It's how do we take on the pressure? And not only how we take on the pressure up front, but can Tyler Bowen, where you've seen him scheme some guys open, can he find the soft spots? Can he find where they're coming from? And can Grant Wells get there? How key is that going to be? Because if you tell me, overall pass pro has been solid, not spectacular, but very solid. But if we're able to slow them up when they bring the pressure, is this the game where Grant Wells has got to take that step where, listen, there's going to be voided areas. You've got to know where they're voiding, and you've got to get it there because we have the opportunity to break big plays.
Yeah, and some of this is going to be about understanding, where the man coverage is and where the mismatch in man coverage is, and being able to diagnose that before the snap. That way, if you know that you've got a mismatch somewhere in further down your progression, you can come off of your primary if it's not there right out the gate, and know that you probably have a mismatch on your secondary read. So that's what he's going to have to work on identifying this week, and that might help him take advantage of some of the yards that we've been leaving out on the field. All
right. I think another key this week, Brian, and we saw it get cleaned up again, is penalties. The UNC game, I think it was 3 for 22, and one was very early with Silas with the false start. But it was overall, we played a very clean game. And I think to have any venue, and then, we look at Pitt's on the bottom side with us, right?
Yeah.
84th in the country, averaging over 60 yards per game on the penalty. So if we can do what we did last week, and they are their normal selves, maybe we can gain a few advantages in the penalties department.
Yeah, I think if we can continue to clean things up, but also play better, right? I think that if we can ratchet up our play, but still keep it clean, I think that's important. Because I think, our defense has played 2 good games where they were penalized a lot.
Yeah.
We need to have the good without the bad.
Yeah.
If we can do that, I think we've got something that we can work with in this game.
Now, I'm going to say a point goes back to our first Hokie key, those taking deep shots. We know that Pat Narduzzi's defensive backs are handsy. They like to grab, they like to pull. So I think you're thinking about take some deep shots. It falls right into that. Get some penalties on them. Get them frustrated. We all remember 2016 and what an enjoyable treat that was that night, as they could not stop a fade or downfield pass, and they had like 9 penalties, and he lost his mind. And I think it's something else that with Caleb especially, and maybe look at Jalen Jones as we've seen him go up. Maybe Daquan Wright, say screw it, go down the sideline and just throw it up.
Yeah.
We know they get handsy. If it looks bad enough, we may be able to take advantage of their aggressiveness, like teams are taking advantage of ours.
Make a throw that gives your guy a chance to get it, but isn't going to be a pick if they don't.
100%. All right, something I'm going to kind of call out the defense for. We've got to force some turnovers. We have to. The games we have forced turnovers in, think about the BC game, that early turnover set the momentum. We are 115th in the country in forcing turnovers. We only have 4 for the year. And as aggressive as we've been, we know this offense needs short fields. So any sort of thing like that, and it's sort of crazy because we saw the West Virginia game with the forced turnover at midfield we did nothing with, and then obviously the BC game we ended up scoring. But is it one of those things? Is this the week where does Pry and the defense say, "Listen, we got to take risks. We've got to take some high risk to force turnovers." So If you think you see a ball that's going to be thrown, jump it. Because right now it's sort of – we're not death by 1,000 cuts because the cuts are bigger, but that's the way we're losing games, right?
Yeah, but I think you still want to still play within the scheme of the defense.
Okay.
So I think you want to, I think Pry might dial up some more consistent pressure this week because he's going to have the opportunity to, I think. If we can do anything to slow down their running game, then we've got some opportunities to get them in bad down and distances, and they're not as deadly as the last two teams we played in moving the sticks.
Yeah.
With that type of game, with the quick passing game, some of their things take a little bit more time to develop. Just the nature of the offense. So there'll be some more opportunities to get after the quarterback, I think, this week than we've seen the last 2 weeks. So I think you see the blitzes get dialed up a lot more frequently, and hopefully that can, whether it's, forcing a fumble in the backfield, whether it's, getting an interception, hopefully that'll, we can come home with at least 2 in our belt this week.
Absolutely. Last part of Hokie Keys, again, I think seeing him on the depth chart, seeing him warm up last week, I think it's a potential return of Malachi Thomas spark because the offense needs something. They need something to look forward to. And I think having a guy like Malachi who's consistent, come back on the field, and regardless of how many plays it is, I don't know how they're going to get him back in. I don't know where he is as far as his conditioning is. But you often see that sometimes, right? One guy that's well-liked, that people feel good, that can make plays, comes back. All of a sudden, everybody feels better. Everybody focuses a little bit more. Everybody doesn't press as much. And the next thing you know, the 3-yard run is going 8. The 8-yard run is going 28. You're hitting a big play downfield. So, I mean, maybe I'm just looking at maroon glasses, but I think him coming back regardless on the field will be a little spark to this team if this is the weekend, which I hope it's the weekend.
It'll help. And like I said, I think it's one of those little things where, things he can give you is, now a 1 or 2 yard gain becomes a 5 or 6 yard gain. Now you're not behind the sticks. Now you're able to do a little bit more with your offense the way you want to more consistently. So I don't think it's going to be a big boost, but I think it'll help you in little ways that might add up to big ways. Right. So we'll see. I'm a lot of this is going to depend on his conditioning level. Is he going to be more of a, at least this week, just a 3 to 5 series type situation, or is it going to be something where, we go ahead and give him kind of 2 second man carries week 1?
Yeah.
We'll see. But if I'm hoping he's able to go and at least give us a little something this week.
Absolutely. All right, Brian. Well, it's time. Let's get our game predictions in here. You led last week. I'll lead this week. I'm still not feeling great about the team. It's still tough for me to put a win on the books until we see some fundamental changes and things going in the right direction. Do I think this is a better battle than it was last week? Yeah, even though Pitt coming off a loss to Georgia Tech, it's inexplicable. I think the familiarity with Pitt from Brent Pry playing them 4 times, a lot of folks on the staff playing Pitt the last few years. I think it's going to be a better game than last week. I can't put us taking the win. I think we lose somewhere like 30-20. I think it's a 10-point game. I think it's a fight. I think it's a fight all the way. I just think they get a little bit of a head in the the early third quarter where they keep us at bay, where again we don't have that capability to make a couple big plays. What about you?
I'm in the similar area. I've got us going 27-16 as the final. I think we do a little bit better at moving the ball consistently to get it into the scoring range, but I think we still struggle to kind of get it over the goal line like we've been struggling recently. I think we get it into the scoring area, but we come away with 3 a little bit more often than we want to. But we put together a few more drives that get us some points this week than we've seen the last few weeks. So I think it's going to be like I said, 27-16. Pitt does just enough offensively against our defense to kind of put them over the top there at the end.
Yep. And we're hoping we're wrong. Completely wrong.
Always.
Is what our hope is before the end of it. All right, Brian. Big screeners. Great call last week on the Ole Miss game. Got both. If I'm not sure if you went to like FanDuel or something and laid that. I'm laying money line and I'm laying the spread.
I wish I would have, man.
You nailed it.
I would have been sweating the whole way, though. I would have been sweating the whole damn way.
You would have been sweating the whole way. My game last week, I was one that turnover deep is what got me. It's a 10-point game. Probably should have been a 7 right into number for a push, but it is what it is. What's your big screen this week? Obviously, this weekend is going to be a beautiful weekend to not sit inside. So which one are you kind of saying, we'll go out and do things here?
I'm going to go ahead and throw that Kansas TCU on my big screen this week, buddy.
All right.
That's an intriguing matchup because you got TCU. Sonny Dykes has them rolling early.
Absolutely rolling offensively.
But then you got Kansas that's really kind of turned it around after some real bad years for them. So we'll see if Kansas has the ability to take that next step and beat a team that has put some good football out there in recent years. So I like that matchup. It's a little bit of a different look, I think. So you usually don't see TCU and Kansas in a prime matchup game. So
no, you don't. High nooner, going to be a high nooner. Game day is going to be there, and now it's like only 5 division or 5 Power 5 schools that have never gotten to visit. UVA is included in one of those.
Yes, they are.
Kansas knocks it off. I like that game. I'm probably not going to see any of that game due to sports. But I'm waiting until the evening. And there's a lot of ranked matchups this week. I mean, you've got that game. You've got Tennessee LSU, which is a noon game. You've got Utah UCLA. You've got Auburn Georgia, the oldest rivalry in the Deep South. But essentially a holy war with BYU Notre Dame. But I've got my odds going around, and I want to know if USC is a real deal. And I think they're going to get a challenge this week with Wazoo coming into town to the Coliseum, 7:30, so I will be able to watch it. That's also something that determines my big screener, if I can be in front of the television to watch it. And that line right now is 13 points. Wazoo's lost one game where Oregon scored 29 points in 14 minutes and 50 seconds. They should be 5-0 because Oregon pulled one out of the arse on that one.
Yep.
But I think this is a real test for USC. You have a balanced Washington State team. I mean, their defense, with the exception of that quarter, has played very well. They won in a tough environment. So that's the one I'm going to be watching. Who do you think in your game? You go in Kansas, or you think TCU takes it?
I feel like TCU has the better end of the talent, although I feel like Kansas has just been playing with a little extra spark. So I've been leaning back and forth. The Frogs are the favorite here by 6 points. I'm going to go what I did last week. I'm going to take Kansas and the points, but I think TCU wins outright.
All right. High scoring game. We're in the 30s or 40s.
Oh yeah. Whatever the over is, hammer it.
67.5. In my game, I'm going to take USC. The line's 13. I don't think they can cover that. But I do think USC does get it done. As much as I liked Wazoo and they kind of had that one sucky loss, I think USC is going to get it done. But it's going to be a lot closer than 13 points, in my opinion. Brian, has anything broken in the last little while here?
No, I think we're good, man.
All righty. Well, that is going to wrap up this episode of the Boundary Corner podcast. I'm Curtis Wilson.
I'm Brian Siegler.
Visit our website, boundarycornerbt.com, to listen to all of our episodes. While you are there, do not forget to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Subscribe to our YouTube account. Thank y'all for watching on YouTube. We have hit 200 the last few weeks of these episodes. We really appreciate that. Your favorite podcast source, Spotify, Amazon, and Apple Podcasts. We always let our buddy Jason Long, he plays us in, he plays us out. And on Saturday from 10 to 3, he is going to be at the Raleigh Court Blocktoberfest. So check him out there. Also check his website out, jasonlongmusic.com, where you can link to all of his music on Apple, Spotify, his YouTube, and his Facebook pages. We thank you for listening. And as always, let's go!
Hokies!